Yes, Edison made money. Edison became famous. But the people who tried, scientists who couldn't become as famous as Edison, does it mean they all had a miserable life? No. For them, the process was fun. It was a challenge that they chose. Like every day they went with the drive. We need to have something in our life to feel we want to, it's worth waking up for. We need, it doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be amazing goals that everybody say, wow, but it's something that makes you feel like I want to wake up and that's important.
So today we have Professor Pasha Mahmood from NUS Business School. He earned his PhD from Harvard University, and his research focuses on strategy, innovation, and sustainability of businesses in emerging markets. Thank you, Professor Pasha, for taking out time and sharing your insight with all of us.
Thank you, Sarthak. I'm happy to be here.
Professor, I'm really excited to have a word with you because you are focusing on emerging market. So let's start with the first question, which is focusing on the strategy and innovation market. So, Professor Pasha, you've been teaching and researching strategy in emerging market for last 25 years now. What first inspired you to the world of strategy in emerging markets, and how has it evolved since then?
Actually, I did my PhD in political economy, mostly in economics. I was interested in trying to understand why some countries are rich, why some countries are poor, and I started doing mostly policy kind of work, public policy. But then I was hired to teach when I came to NUS, I was hired to teach economics, macro and microeconomics. But most of my colleagues, they were interested in firm level phenomena. And somehow I got into it. And as I got into it, I realized that, a country is only as competitive as the firms in that country. Think about this. Countries make money because firms sell things that people are willing to buy to pay for those products and services. If companies are not competitive, countries cannot be competitive. So I eventually started trying to understand what makes some firms perform better than others. And slowly I got interested into emerging markets because it is such an exciting place in terms of all the growth opportunities. Because if you look at this, most of the new middle class would be coming from emerging markets. And emerging markets, if you look at Asia especially, would have about almost half the world's GDP in the next 30 years. So this is where all the customers are. This is where all the newcomers are, the firms are. So that's got me interested.
That's so interesting. And this transition that you talked about, where you started from the background of economics and then transition to this background of business. So was it difficult initially?
It was difficult because to be a professor in a business school like National University of Singapore, you have to publish. And publication for an economics journal is different from publications in a business journal. It's a matter of crafts. And I didn't learn how to write papers which are publishable in top journals. It took me a little bit of time. So it was difficult in terms of uh, academic transition. Uh, in terms of in terms of my interest, it was not at all difficult because uh, I was interested in trying to understand why is it that Silicon Valley produces so many companies whose products we use? How come we don't have those kind of companies in different parts of the world? Why are they concentrated in one part? So, so to me, the questions were there. When I started looking at it from the firm's point of view, it just became a different lens, so to speak.
No, actually, the class was very interesting when you came up with the topic of emerging market. There was one topic that I really enjoyed, the analogy that you gave about food, and you explained how strategy works. If you can dwell into that insight, it would be great for this podcast.
Which analogy?
Of boot, where you use boot as how the strategy works.
You see, the idea is strategy is, think about this. I just want you to think it this way. When you hop on a taxi to go somewhere, do you ask the taxi driver where you want to go?
No.
The taxi driver asks you where you want to be. So all the strategy, whatever we're talking about, it has to start with some understanding about where the firm wants to go, where you want to go, the protagonist. If you don't have an idea where you want to go, others will tell you where you should go. And by the time you reach there, you might think that's the wrong place you wanted to be. It's not the place you wanted to be. So the strategy starts with trying to get an understanding of where you want to go. But just because you want to go there doesn't mean you have the means to go there. So let's say you have to think about, do you have the boat to take you where you want to be? What if you try moving towards with your current boat? What kind of challenges will you face? Will you face a storm? Will you face Godzilla? Will you face Jaws coming after you? If your current boat is not enough, then how do you need to transform the boat?
Nice.
And if you want to transform the boat, let's say you're very happy, you're reaching towards your goal, the island where you have been planning to, go daydreaming about. But right before you're there, you realize that small boats are swarming all around. Basically, they were nearby and they didn't need to change the boat. They just could hop from one island to the other. So you have to think about how your rivals might react. It's not just about you reaching there. Will you reach there in time before others? And if everything is there, the last thing you should be asking is, okay, what are the must-win battles? From picking the right boat to picking the right captain to making sure that you can actually avoid those storms to reach where you want to go. So it's a kind of like my approach is to use visualization as a way to keep this stay in your mind. I don't want to talk too much, otherwise nobody will take this class.
No, but it is very easy to understand now the strategy concept and using the analogy of both. There was a quote that I read which was about vision without action is daydream, and action without vision is nightmare.
Yes, I completely agree with that. It is a totally, you can have all these daydream. Daydream is important, because it tells us where we want to be, but you have to start. You have to start somewhere. It will not automatically happen.
Yes. So let's talk about the start. You were born in Bangladesh and you moved to US for all your education. And how did that start came to your mind, or how did that journey started for you?
After I graduated from high school, I wanted to continue doing my undergraduate work in my home country. But then in those days, we had a military government. So what happened was we would have student protests every now and then. And once you have student protests, sometimes police would use live ammunition. So this is difficult for you to understand that you go outside and there is a protest and sometimes people die. So every now and then you would have student protests leading to death. So then the whole campus would, because I grew up in the university campus, because my parents were professors there, then the whole campus would basically explode. And when the whole campus would explode, the government would close down the university. So the idea is then people will get dispersed. They'll go back to their hometowns, their villages, so that they can't be mobilized. So all the rioting, all the protests would die down. That was the idea. So in those days, every now and then they would close down the university, and then they would start it again. So this kind of stopgap approach meant a 4-year degree would take 7 years. So that's when my father asked me to consider applying to different places, and the U.S. Uh, was second list in my list of places. I wanted to go to Japan. Um, so, but the problem was in those days, my country didn't produce anything that the rest of the world would want to buy. So our currency had no value. If the currency had no value, my parents' salary as university professors, if I were to convert them into foreign currency, it would be very limited. So I needed to have a scholarship. So the school I wanted to apply in Japan, they had a scholarship, but it was only meant for a certain group of people. So I couldn't get that. So my father asked me to apply to the US because good US universities, they give full scholarships if you do well in SAT and all those things. So I had to take SAT. The problem was I never studied in English. So I had to, everything I studied was in my mother tongue until grade 12. So it's not that I didn't study English, but I took English as one class as a foreign language. And my grammar was okay, but my reading comprehension was horrible. And in SAT, you have to read and you have to comprehend and you have to answer and you have to know a lot of words. So I remember memorizing about 4,000 words. But memorizing is not that easy because you have to be able to apply them. So those days, me and my grandfather, we used to talk about words and I used to use them to everybody around me. So I became very unpopular because those words nobody uses.
Yeah.
But that's the only way you can remember. If you can't apply them, you wouldn't be able to remember the words. Anyway, so I could get the score that I wanted and I could apply, and somebody was nice enough to give me a scholarship. That's how I went to the US.
I don't think so. It's nice enough. It was your effort that you memorize all the word, you put in all the efforts. This is because
No,
you.
actually, what I realized is a couple of things. One was, yes, efforts is necessary. But my friends who I went to school with, they were many of them were smarter than me, but they didn't know that there is something called scholarship. So, but by the way, just because they didn't come to the US as undergrads doesn't mean they're not doing well. They're doing excellent, many of them. They just went there as graduate students. So, life has many different turns, many, many ways. There's no one way. If your heart is on the right track and you're willing not to take shortcuts, you will find a way. It doesn't have to be only one way. So my friends are all doing very well. It's just I thought I was having more fun as an undergrad in the US. Then I realized they were having a lot of fun too as undergrads in wherever they were. So as an undergrad, you just want to have fun. As student, that's the. By the way, that's one of the reasons I wanted to remain in the academia because I'm always surrounded by students.
That's interesting. Like staying in academia and not choosing corporate world, which is, I believe the corporate world could have paid you more if you had this kind of an experience going there. But still you.
Yes, I mean, but how do you define payments? I
Yeah.
mean, would anybody willing to talk to me like the way you are talking to me if I was in corporate world? Probably not. Uh, so would anybody be willing to listen to what I have to say, except for very specific reason why they come to talk to me for? Probably not. So uh, academia has its own way to look at what we get. Uh, in terms of uh, money is one thing, and if fortunately, if you want to be a professor in a business school, you would get paid well. But there are many other jobs, as you pointed out, that could pay you even better. But it's about, again, going back to asking the questions: how do you see yourself? What is valuable to you? For me, time is valuable. Being able to have freedom is valuable. And as a professor, I you see, I'm a little bit reluctant to talk about the difference between a professor and a teacher because what makes the life meaningful is not whether you're a professor in a university or whether you're a primary school teacher. It's the ability to give. Uh, that makes the life of a teacher special.
Yeah. Last time we had Professor Sean, and he also said a very similar thing that you mentioned. When I asked him about a book that a person must read in his life, so he suggested me to go with a book by Professor Clay Christensen on how to
Hmm,
measure your life.
I see.
Yeah. So I could relate that money is not the primary objective of anything, and you cannot measure everything in terms of money. There are
I
many other
mean, the
factors.
the thing is, as you get older, you may have a different appreciation for different things in life. This is normal, right? When you were 10 years old, you you thought about something. Whenever I would get a gift when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, I would leave it, so that as soon as I wake up in the morning, I could see the gift and I feel like it's still there. And, I would get excited. But what I'm trying to say is at the end, money can only be used to buy things that has price. But think about all the things in life that you really value, like your parents, the love of your mother, or when you fall in love, you can't really buy them with money, including the nature or the smell, smell after, let's say, smell after rain, the first rain. These things, even if you want to spend money, you can, but you wouldn't. Let's say you want to spend money to go to a nice island,
Yeah,
but if you're by yourself, you wouldn't necessarily be happy. So,
that's true.
so money gives you certain level of autonomy in life. So does health. Good health also gives you autonomy in life. But if you think about this way, they're really valuable things. They're free.
Yeah. Yes, that's actually very rightly said. And then moving on to the second question, seeing the aspect of healthy product. So strategy is also applicable beyond business. So do you have any hobby or any sport where you feel that strategizing is quite important?
When I was a lot younger, I used to play football, soccer. I used to play cricket.
Oh,
So think about sports. You want to win, right? If
yes,
it's a group sport, you want to win. One group against other, and whenever the question of winning comes, you can't have both parties win at the same time. So in those kind of situations, so you need to have some kind of strategy. And you as a you play cricket, I know. So you think
yes,
about how to apply your strength against your rival's weaknesses, right?
yes.
So it's about that. But think about the other way. I want us to think of strategy in a slightly broader way. What if it's an individual sport? Okay. Let's say you want to go to Olympic. It doesn't have to be, or let's say you want to be the school champion. Doesn't even matter. It could be you have a certain goal of yourself about what you want to do in playing an individual sport. And you ask yourself, if you continue doing what you're doing, will you reach your goal? If the answer is yes, then you don't need a strategy. You have a strategy, you just continue with that. But on the other hand, doing what you're doing, if it is not going to take you where you want to be, you need to change the boat. There's something wrong in the way you're doing things, or maybe nothing is wrong. It's just not going to take you where you want to be. So you need to change something. You can't expect the same results and doing the same thing again and again, right? I think it's Einstein who said something like insanity is like doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results.
Yeah, that's true.
Strategy is when you need to think about how you do things to reach where you want to be. Okay.
Yeah, I read about this incident where he did, no, was it Einstein or the person who invented bulb? So he did like 9,000 trial or 999 trial, if I remember.
Yes, yes. Was it Edison?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, it was
Was
it.
it Edison? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So Edison didn't give up till the 999 trial. And if we would have given up on that trial, he wouldn't have figured out on the 1,000 trial that he got the bulb.
Exactly, Sarthak. I mean, we focus too much on the successes. We forget what goes, and sometimes what goes behind. And sometimes the process itself is fun. Yes, Edison made money. Edison became famous. But the people who tried, scientists who couldn't become as famous as Edison, does it mean they all had a miserable life? No. For them, the process was fun. It was a challenge that they chose, like every day they went with the drive. We need to have something in our life to feel we want to, it's worth waking up for. We need, it doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be amazing goals that everybody say, wow, but it's something that makes you feel like I want to wake up, and that's important. And
Yeah.
by the way, nobody has it every day. I
Yeah.
often get bored.
Sorry, you often
I
get bored?
often get bored myself. So what I'm saying is in life, you can't
Uh-huh.
always think like every morning, 365 days, you will get up with the same level of drive. It doesn't happen. But
Yeah.
I'm saying more from a broader, it's good to have something that makes you excited. That's what I'm saying. If you don't, then maybe it is, you think about what is it that I should be doing that would make me excited.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is you can't have every single day if you feel like, oh, why don't I feel excited? It's probably not going to be. But it's a more general statement.
No, I could relate to that because if you're seeing a movie on a biography or some famous person, you see that everything is happening in a positive manner and he's excited about all that stuff. But that's
Yeah,
compilation of his life in just 2 hours, not his whole life. So
that's right. That's right. I think being thankful is probably the most important thing about being happy. You know, uh, Different people comes in life with different endowments, but it is hard for me to claim or anybody to claim just because we have certain privileges, we are more happy than others. I don't want to, what is the word? There are a lot of problems in this world, there are a lot of difficulties. Those are real. But even within difficulties, some people are able to maintain their, I don't know, bouts of happiness. Happiness is not a permanent thing. If you think about it, it's a feeling, but peacefulness, maybe. I don't have an answer for these, but I wonder.
It's life. We are all figuring out new things in life.
Yeah, you'll be figuring things out even when you're 80 years old.
Yes, it's true. And now moving on to the next question. So it was about like we looked at a lot of cases in classes about Tunaika, Vikas, or BTP, and they were all pioneers in their own market. So we cannot obviously go around all of them. But is there any case that you read and you felt like that, yeah, one of the cases that stood out for you?
My own cases or other people's cases?
Anything that you came across in terms of strategizing or business that you feel like sharing with us?
I read so many cases. So uh, I don't want to talk about any specific case, but I want you to think about this way. What is a case? Case is a simulation. You put yourself in the mind of the protagonist. How is it different from a literature, a novel, a short story? They're also telling a story, right? And
Yes.
when you read a good piece of novel, you are actually forgetting that it is about somebody else. You put yourself in the mind of the protagonist and you feel sorry, you cry, or you become happy when something good happens. So, what I'm trying to say is, business case is somehow it's trying to teach us what to do if we were in those situations. Okay. But it is not that fundamentally different from literature, which teaches us about judgments, hard work, ethics. What happens when we forget about those things? What happens when we choose shortcuts? Uh, so I love literature. So maybe because my mother was a professor of literature, so I got into literature early. Especially I like I like all kinds of literature, including poems too, poetries, so everything.
Yeah, when I entered your office, I could see a lot of artifacts over there from Asia, and I could sense that you have this liking towards literature and historic artifacts.
My father was a professor of history, so
Oh,
I was also very interested in history. I don't know how I ended up in business. Nobody in my family has ever done anything to do with business. That's why when I was growing up, I didn't want to do anything that my parents did. I didn't want to be anywhere near any university. I wanted to do real things. But
mm.
look what happened. I came back to university just like them.
Oh, well, that's interesting that you came back and you started teaching us at the business school.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have connected with you and never learned a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
And there's a question that a lot of people and a lot of my friends face when they are entering into university. So we are very uncertain about our career paths. was there any time in your student life that you face a similar situation, and how did you tackle it?
How is it possible that I wouldn't have felt the same way? You ask your parents, they would have felt the same way. Some people are certain
Yes.
at certain stage, and then there are times when they're not certain anymore. It's normal, right? So as I told you, but I'll tell you the way I looked at the world, and the way I looked at the world would be different. I mean, from maybe how people look at the world today, and depends on where they come from. People have different way of looking at the world. The way I came from, it was very simple. If I was not a good student, my choices would be very limited. My parents wouldn't have left me a big company to go and work with. So I had to be a good student. Simple. And I never said smart students. To us, smart means good. Good means good grades. And good grades come from hard work. Hard work, and you have to be a bit clever about how exams come too. But the bottom line was, I never thought, I wanted to study law, because in those days there was a TV program called Paper Chase that really got me interested into law, and I had good memories. I thought I would, and I liked logic. I thought I would be a good lawyer. In the United States, law is a graduate program. So after you finish your undergrad, you have to spend maybe another 3 years to do a JD. And those days, there was no scholarship for foreign students to study law. So I didn't think I could have enough resources to study law. So what I wanted to do was then, okay, if I don't study law, maybe I would go to business. And then I got a job in a very, very reputable consulting firm. So I thought my life was all set, because people told me that my life was set, because people from those kind of jobs, they would go to Harvard Business School, MIT, Stanford, and then they would get paid well. That's kind of like this track. So I thought, very good. But I hated my job.
Mm.
I really disliked it, because people around me kept talking about how smart they were and how not smart other people were. And it really, I didn't fit in the culture at all. And I realized I wanted to go, I had no problem working hard, but I just wanted to know why I was working so hard. And if I took the number of hours I spent and divided the money I got by the number of hours, I thought I was almost slave labor. So it didn't really go with where I wanted to go. I knew that's not the life I would want to do, even if I were paid many times more.
Yeah.
So I decided maybe I would trade off some of the money for some of the freedom. So I applied to graduate school, and fortunately for me, they chose me. But at that time, my reason for going to graduate school was not to learn more, was to have about 5 years so that I wouldn't need to worry about what to do. Wrong reason. And I thought, because I was a good student, I could wing it. I was wrong. PhD in economics is not easy. You cannot wing it. You have to work hard. So very soon I was miserable again, you know? And then after a couple of years, things started getting better. I started enjoying what I was doing. So what I realize is you can't always enjoy what you're doing. Sometimes you have to, it's like playing any sports. Initially may not be good, but once you start putting enough time, you get better and better. And the better you become, the more you start enjoying it. And the more you're enjoying, the better you become. But it doesn't always start that way. But sometimes you can make it do better, the virtuous cycle, or it can go to the vicious cycle. Anyway, so then once you choose a PhD program, either you work for, let's say, for my case, either I work for World Bank, IMF, or I become an academic.
Yeah.
And again, um, sometimes I can plan, but like really important things in life, like who you're going to marry, you probably wouldn't plan the whole thing. It happens. So this is how it is. And you just have to keep in my we use a word called niyat. Niyat means your intention. If
Yeah.
your intention is good in what you do, probably it will turn up okay. And anyway, this is not, look at your parents, grandparents. their dreams don't always have to come true, every single dream, but they all had a relatively good life, or lives where they were happy, or
Yeah.
they are happy. So people don't have to reach every single dream of theirs to have a happy life.
No, actually, it's so well said.
I'm reading a very interesting book. I think it's somewhere around. It's called, it's something like, it's okay not to look for the meaning of life. You don't have to look for the meaning of life. It's written by a Zen monk. I thought it's very interesting.
Not looking for the meaning of life.
It's okay not to look for the meaning of life. Basically, you live well with good intention, treat people around you with respect. These are not easy things, by the way. We are
Yes.
humans, right?
Yes.
Uh, and try to add value to people around us. Again, none of this is easy. Otherwise, otherwise we'd all become like the monk. Of
Yeah. Being virtuous is actually tough, and it's
course,
yeah.
there's
I
a great movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Scent of a Woman. Have you seen the movie?
no, I haven't seen that movie.
It's a good movie. It's old, but it's worth watching. And there's a one scene towards the end of the movie
Okay.
where I don't want to tell you the story. Story is very interesting.
Yeah.
Where the main protagonist, Al Pacino. You know the name Al Pacino?
Yes, one of
So
the most prominent actors from that era.
yeah, and he says that, he said something to the fact that he always knew he could differentiate right for wrong, but he never chose what was right because it was damn too hard. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it's not easy to always choose the right things. And even if we make mistakes, we have to believe that we can come back. We can come back and get it right. So life is like that. Sometimes we think we know because everybody tells us this is the right way.
Yes.
Then we realize, you know, uh, this is not what I like. Then we do something else. As long as we are doing it in the right way, we are not hurting people, probably it's okay.
Yes. The
Better
intention.
not to put too much pressure on ourselves.
Yeah. Like if we are even focusing on the basic things of not hurting others and just focusing on doing well, and sometimes even if you are making mistake, it's yeah, you can recover from that.
Yeah, and to me, one of the things that, because I have a 17-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter. So
Okay.
how do you teach them things in life? But it's very hard for me, and sometimes I wonder, I'm teaching, but I can't even teach my own kids. But I think that's what the challenge for all parents. Maybe one day you'd realize. One of the words that I try to stay away always is loser. You know, I don't care so much about the word winner, but the word loser, it hurts me to hear that word. You know,
Yes.
because who decides who is a loser? Is it what window do we use? You know, uh, there's a famous quote by Shaquille O'Neal. So he says something like, "I live in a 65,000 square feet house all by myself. Do you have to tell me that I've screwed up?" So what I'm trying to say, in his mind, he may not see himself as a winner. So how do we look at winner? How do we look at loser? It's very difficult for others to decide for us. So I want us to kind of like the captain of our own soul, to some extent.
So just as you mentioned about Shaquille O'Neal, so I heard it in a podcast where an ancient Roman emperor went to a person after conquering half of the world and
Mm,
told him that, yes, I have conquered all this, I have all the stuff. And the person, when he was standing next to him, he told, just get aside, I need my son.
yes.
So that's the importance. Even after capturing all the stuff around you, conquering half of the world, there are people who just really care about the nature, the beautiful, and they're happy with that.
Actually, this is Diogenes.
Yes.
It was Diogenes, and the emperor was Alexander. What
Yeah.
happened, as you know, Alexander, he conquered half of the known world, came all the way to India,
Yeah.
Porus, remember?
Yes.
Indus Valley. You remember the story, right? About how Alexander, after defeating Porus, asked
Yes.
this imprisoned Porus, about to kill him, about to behead Porus, and asked Porus, the Indian king. So, how do you want to be treated? How do you expect to be treated? Do you remember? Porus's answer was, I expect to be treated like a king. And Alexander was so impressed by Porus's courage and forthrightness that he let him free. But anyway, so this Alexander, who was known for bouts of bad temper,
Yes.
and he was full of himself. He died at the age of 29, by the way. And
Oh,
can you imagine? So anyway, he came back, and as he came back, all the people, philosophers and others, came to pay respect.
yes.
Professors, philosophers, we are human beings. Many of us want to be told we are successful. We
Yes.
are not too different from other people. So they went and tried to curry favor with him. And there was one person missing, this guy called Diogenes.
Yeah.
And others tried to put say bad things about in Alexander's ear to make him angry about Diogenes. He said, look, everyone is here, but Diogenes is not here to pay respect to you. Who does he think? Who does he think he is? Does he think he is more important than you are? The fact that there was somebody who didn't come to pay homage to him made him, Alexander, intrigued by it. Who is this kind of guy? So one day he went with his retinue to see where this guy was. He was kind of staying right in a small hut outside the city wall. And as he entered, he saw that this elderly man was uh, bathing in a bathtub, half naked, kind of like bathing under sun. So as he came, normally everybody stands up, right? But he didn't stand up. Even he saw it was Alexander. So Alexander sarcastically told Diogenes, I am Alexander of Macedon, who you might be. He said, I know you are. I am Diogenes of Corinthia. Then Alexander was, oh, okay. Then to continue, he didn't know what to say. He said, so Diogenes of Corinthia, tell me, what can I do for you? Normally people ask the emperor, emperor, can
Yes.
you do? So to make it even more sarcastic, he said, so, oh, Diogenes of Corinthia, tell me, what can I do for you? He said, yes, you can do one thing for sure. First, you can stay away from the sun. Do not take from me what you cannot give.
Do not take from
Because
me what you
he
cannot give.
cannot give sunlight. So the thing is, Alexander was so impressed. He left, and supposedly people heard him saying that if I was not Alexander, I would rather be Diogenes of Corinthia. Why? Because Diogenes of Corinthia was free. He was free because he didn't depend on what people thought of him or what people could give to him. So if we could have that level of independence, we will probably be quite free in that sense. So we get to decide also what kind of life we want, but easier said than done
Yes.
for
Living
everybody.
a life as Diogenes would be very tough because he's living a normal life, living.
I think there was I don't know what kind of philosopher he was. Was it a sophist or a stoic? I don't know. But you can later check. Quite
Yeah.
an amazing, yeah.
It's always interesting. So reading about the Greek and the Roman history, they always teach us
Yes,
something.
actually, any history is fun because it talks about mistakes. It talks about good things, bad things about humans. It shows that we are not unique.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I have a question from a perspective of a student. So looking
Hey,
ahead, what skill or mindset do you believe will be the most important as a student?
that's an easy question. I love movies. I will give the answer in terms of a movie. One of my favorite movies is a Japanese movie called Tasogare Seibei. And the English name is Twilight Samurai. And it takes place about 1860s, about 1864, 65, when Japan was going through tremendous amount of changes from feudal Japan to the transition to modern Japan. And right around that time, the story is about the life of a samurai who didn't have a very gorgeous life. His wife, he was a widower, didn't have a wife, had an elderly mother he had to look after, and two young daughters who had to look after. So he had no time to look good, dress nicely, and he was not rich. So it's about him. But he was a brilliant swordsman. There's an interesting fight at the end. But what was interesting is one day he came back from the castle, and his youngest daughter told him, "Father, when you were away, your uncle came and he saw me going through the Confucius Analects. I was reading, and grand uncle told me, I'm a girl. Why should I be reading? It's waste of my time. I should instead be learning how to do embroidery, cooking. So father, am I wasting my time? Is the grand uncle right?" So the father thought for a couple of seconds and he said, maybe grand uncle has something to say. Maybe he's true. Maybe he's right. Maybe it would be more useful for you to learn how to do embroidery. Then again, if you know how to read, you can think. And if you can think, no matter which way the world moves, you can always survive. So going back to your question, it's not a skill. It is more of an agility of mindset, not to get scared, not to get too attached to one way of doing things. It comes again from having an open mind, because you'll be dealing with people from many different countries. So it's not a skill you can pick up. It's a way of looking at the world. Openness, and easier said than done. You know, nobody likes to change, especially if they don't have to. But it's flexibility and openness. Those are important. And those are the kind of things I don't have. I have to still fight for. But those are important.
Actually tough to apply these kind of skill, openness and
It's a mindset. I wouldn't call it a skill. You see, you will learn AI, you will learn different things. But I don't think things have changed since the days I was a student. You need to you need to understand things. You need to understand people. You need to understand yourself. You need to reflect. Ability to reflect is very important thing. Things don't move too fast. There's no point. Things are moving too fast, but you're not spending time to reflect. Reflection is very valuable.
Yes. And similar to this ideology, I had this thing like a lot of people keep on asking that AI will replace your job or it will take over and the people won't be having jobs in the future. But I think if you're open and flexible enough to adapt to this AI era, you might end up creating a new thing which might create a lot of jobs for you.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about this way, when automation happened, it also took away a lot of jobs, right? But
Yes.
the jobs of people who are working on the, let's say, doing things manually, they became supervisors.
Yeah.
So what will happen probably is AI would make lots of mistakes. Our jobs would be to troubleshoot those things. So we will have new jobs that would involve AI, but our jobs would be to do some of those things. AI wouldn't probably be able to fix everything by itself.
Yes, that's true. Lastly, coming on to question of like you are reading a lot of books and you have a lot of knowledge. So, is there any book or any books that you would like to recommend to all the audience that is listening to this podcast?
The beauty about reading is there's no end. I can just share with you some of my favorite books, starting with the one that I gave my son when he was 15-year-old, and I got a very nice copy for him, with the picture, very hard-bind pictures. And that was now he's 17. And sometimes I used to ask him, "Have you read it?" He said, "I'm going to read it tomorrow." So whenever I tell people to read something, they don't read. So in any case, you asked me what my favorite books are. I have many, but maybe I can just share some. The book I got for my son is called Factfulness. It's by Hans Rosling. It's a good book. Um, I mean, I have a very simple way of looking at whether a book is good or not. If it makes my heart go bigger, it's good. Otherwise, I don't read it. Behind me, I may have some of my favorite books. Let me see. Another book is called Leo Africanus. It is by Amin Malouf. It's about a real character called Leo the African, who taught the West about Africa, about 15th century cartologist, historian.
Wow.
Uh, Very interesting. He was born in Granada. His name was Hassan al-Wazan, but then he was kidnapped and brought to Rome, and he was baptized. And then he eventually became a Rome's envoy dealing with the Ottomans. And then eventually he left Rome and came back and Tangier, where he was originally from. One book that I found it changed the way I look at the world, is called Blood Done, D-O-N-E Done, Sign My Name. It's written by Timothy Tyson. It's about his semi-memoir. It's about race relations in the US and the history. What does it got to do with me, who has nothing to do with America? Because when you realize about stereotypes, when you realize about human biases, you realize it's not about African Americans, blacks, it's not about whites, it's about humans. And there's a certain universality to it. So it's very interesting. It's called Blood, Done, Sign My Name. There's so many. I love. Right now, I'm reading an interesting book called "Ethical Living Through Stories: Encounters with Adab." The word is called adab. Means manners in Arabic. I like poems. I like, for example, Rumi, Sufi poems. And there's a Turkish Sufi poet. His name is Yunus Emre. I like Yunus Emre. I like Tagore.
Yes.
One of his very favorite small poem is like this. I shut the door and the window out. I shut out the doors. And what is it? I shut the doors and the windows to keep the errors out. Truth says, how do I get in? I'm going to repeat, see if you can get it. I shut the windows and the doors to keep errors out. I don't want to make mistake, so I shut the door so that no errors can come in. Because I close the door, truth says, how can then do I come in? So basically,
Yeah.
it's where the error comes, the truth also comes from the same door. When you close down the door, you are making sure that there is no mistakes,
Yeah.
but also there would be no way to learn the truth either. So it's by Tagore.
Coming back to the openness point that you mentioned before, how open you are and how
Yeah.
willing you are to learn from the things rather than just keeping in
And
mind.
we are not perfect.
Yes.
Nobody is perfect. And that's why uh, good person, bad person, we are not born to be bad. So
Yes.
people behave in different contexts. Understanding is very important, and the important to believe that people can improve.
Yes.
I hope so, because I see a lot of bad things in myself. So I have to believe that it can improve. I can improve.
That's the willingness. Lastly, just one question.
Mm.
You were mentioning in the class about how you visit companies in like Samsung in India and a lot of companies globally, and you
Yes.
work with them on the strategies. So,
Yes.
can you share anything from your experience there?
So, mm, there's a lot you can learn while working with companies.
Mm.
The You see, for a business school professor, it's very important to understand that what we are saying is not just theory. There is actually somebody somewhere will actually benefit from it. And it's very difficult for me to learn if I don't spend time with real companies. So I spend a lot of time working with companies. And it's a good thing is it's kind of like it's a litmus test whether I have anything good to say, because if they don't really benefit from me, they would not talk to me. They have better things to do.
Yes.
So I work quite closely with some large Japanese companies, some German companies, some companies from. So the way it works is sometimes I will help their top management team uh, on their strategy workshop. They may have 2 day strategy retreat. They want somebody to basically facilitate those things. And for me, the best thing is I'm the one who is learning. So what I'm doing is I'm actually asking them the same questions I ask my students in the class. Where do you want to be? It's not easy because they have many products, many countries. Where do you want to be? But think about yourself. If I ask you, Sarthak, where do you want to be? Even for you, you have multiple customers. Your mother, father, grandfather, grandmother, your girlfriend, your friends, you have multiple customers. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
So picking one means you are trading off, you have some trade-offs. So it's not easy. Then I ask them, okay, fine, you want to grow your business. That's where you want to be. Let's see a business model. Let's tell me, if you continue with this business model, do you think you will reach where you want to be? If they're very confident, then I'll say, very good. You have nothing to worry.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you think you have something to worry, where do you think you need to make the changes? And once you do all those changes, do you think your rivals wouldn't be able to do them? If
True.
you're smart, don't you think they're smart too? How are you going to differentiate from them? How are you going to compete with them and fight? If they fight with you, if they want to destroy your competitive advantage, how will you defend? And where would be your priorities, your weak links? Every strategy is as good as the strength of the weak links. How would you fortify those weak links?
Yeah.
Now, each one of these things force people to think. And the important thing to realize is there are no, I don't like to use clever words. Clever words, smart looking, smart sounding, words have no place in my mind.
It's
Only one thing, is it useful to you? If it is not, make things simple. Make things simple. I forgot who was it who said, I forgot somebody I was reading, said, anything that can be said clearly. I think it could be Einstein also. Anything
yes.
that can be said clearly. So you have to say things very clearly.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, so these are the reasons I work with companies. Actually, they give me money, but actually I'm the one who's benefiting.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. So perfectly. So I was just about to wrap this up. So thank you so much, Professor, for sharing your thoughts with all of us over here today. It was so fun having you on our podcast and really enjoyed your insights and how to look the world using strategy.
I don't have much insights. I'm trying to figure it out. As I said, we will be trying to figure it out until we are dead. That's what it is. We're
Yes.
trying to figure it out. Mhm.
Yes. Thank you so much again, Professor.